Mr Dutton, on the legislation that you introduced to the House yesterday, expanding or tweaking some of the powers that ASIO has, it will give ASIO the ability to get warrants for people as young as 14 and also give them the power to have warrantless tracking. Can you explain the justification for putting in place those measures?
Yes, so the current law was introduced in 2003, obviously off the back of the 9/11 attacks. And we have still today a very serious threat from terrorists who would hijack a plane or would go into a movie theatre or a food court and set off an improvised explosive device. ASIO is dealing with those cases every day. So there's serious powers that are required to deal with that threat. Now, in 2018, there was a review done by the PJSIS, by the Intelligence Committee here in the Parliament, and there were that's a bipartisan committee, as you know, and recommendations were made. We've picked up those recommendations, including in relation to lowering the age from 16 to 14 in relation to terrorism offences or investigations, the ability to be able to question a 14-year-old. Why have they done that? Well, the PJSIS recommended it because they're obviously, it's a sad reality, but there are 14-year-old kids at the moment who are being indoctrinated online in our own country, but listening to all sorts of crazy thoughts from people overseas, or they're being indoctrinated here in Australia, and they pose a significant threat. So let's be realistic about the threat, and we've seen instances where we have had disruptions of younger people that have been planning attacks in our country. So this is a real threat. It doesn't apply to the areas of espionage and foreign interference, where we don't have 14-year-olds engaged in that sort of conduct, but we do have them engaged in potentially trying to cause a terrorist event or being involved in fundraising or support of a terrorist organisation. So that's the reason the law has been changed. And in relation to the second part of your question, every police force in Australia at the moment has the ability to place a tracking device on a motor vehicle, for example, with an internal regime which is reviewable, and that's what we seek to replicate for ASIO, particularly given the serious offenders that they're dealing with, either terrorists or people that are involved in pretty serious organised activities. So I think it's an appropriate law, and I hope that it receives bipartisan support, as we know it did within the PJSIS.